10.
The igniters have been lit.
9, 8, 7, 6.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff at dawn. The dawn of Orion and a new era of American space exploration.
For those of us space nerds who grew up in an era of moonwalks, shuttle launches, and dreams of starships, seeing the Orion lift off this morning from Cape Kennedy was the promise of a real return to space travel and going back to other planets. Now, it looked great, but what does it need to seriously accomplish in order to stay this time? Welcome to MidPoint. Former Pennsylvania Congressman, former chairman of the Committee on Science and Technology, where he advocated spending more on the space program, Robert Walker. Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
Nice to be with you.
How excited were you today watching the Orion finally get off the ground?
Well, it's very exciting, of course, to watch the capsule being launched, and it is the first step. I must say that it's a small step because the vehicle on which it was launched is actually one of our workhorse rockets, the Atlas V. It was not launched on the rocket that ultimately would allow us to go beyond Earth orbit and go into deep space. That system, called the SLS, is still under development and, in fact, is way over cost and way behind schedule.
There's the problem. Way over cost and way behind schedule. I think those of us who have followed the space program for decades have heard those words before. How do we then get it back on track to the point where it will become something substantive? And not only that, but I also go back to John Kennedy when he challenged man to go to the moon. First off, it was an American will that we had at the time to do that. And can we even get that will back at a time when there are so many other things taking up our time, attention, and our money?
Well, I think we can, because we are now beginning to see some of the experiments that are coming off the space station, for example, turned into products. And some of those products are going to be extremely exciting. In fact, they could be revolutionary, they could be disruptive. When people begin to understand the value of going to space and being able to learn new things, I think that development of new knowledge is the reason why we should proceed forward. But in my view, I mean, we need to be doing some things that allow us to make this kind of exploration into a reality for people. And you know, I'm not so certain that you can continue to rely upon chemical rockets as the way that you go into deep space. I think we need to go to a new paradigm, for instance, using nuclear power that would allow us then to have power all the way from the Earth, if you want to go to Mars, which would cut a trip that otherwise will be months down to weeks.
We continue to come up with great ideas and always a great thought that we're going to get there. But then in your opinion, what will it take to get over that hurdle about putting that will in motion, putting that money in motion, and making it actually happen? Because it seems we're always talking 20, 30, 40 years down the road. I mean, we were supposed to be in Mars, I think, in some estimations by 1999, if you want to believe the science fiction artists. So what do we have to do to really get there finally?
Well, what you have to do is you have to get beyond relying on simply government funding for a lot of these missions. You have to get investment people interested in helping the government move forward. And so you've got to have investors who are backfilling into low Earth orbit and spend our money doing real exploration. So it means a transfer of the way in which we do the money at NASA. If we would do that, we would have enough money, we would have enough resources to begin to look at doing the kinds of deep space missions that will really tell us a lot about our solar system and ultimately about our universe.
Is NASA the right organization to do it? Because some people have been very critical of NASA over the years for wasting a lot of money.
Well, you know, look, NASA has a lot of really good people in it, and you know, and they are frustrated too because they see themselves choked in many ways by the way in which the funding is allocated by the Congress. You know, I think what you need to have is you need to have a commitment to where we want to go, and then maybe you need to have an agency like the original NASA that is not constrained by a lot of past performance, but is able to do the kinds of really innovative things that NASA did back in the 60s.
A couple of minutes that we have left here, Congressman. Let me spin now to something else that involves money as well, but a little more closer to home here on the ground and closer to Washington where you are. The discussion of a government shutdown. Here we go again. Honestly, the American people, I think, are dog sick and tired of hearing this every time it comes around when there's a problem between the left and the right. You've been there. You've sat with these people before. What, in your opinion, is the one thing we've got to do to get this up, stop all this talk, and move forward?
We've got to change the processes in Congress to assure that when we get to the end of the year, the appropriation bills have already been done, and the pattern is set for the upcoming fiscal year. There's no reason why we should arrive at Christmas time and be struggling over passing spending bills. They were supposed to be passed by October 1st, and we've got to change the processes so that we make certain that that gets done.
Some congressmen are more than willing to go for the shutdown. They say, go ahead, call the president's bluff. Would that not be just another disaster?
Well, I think that that would be a bad thing at the present time. Look, the American people have elected a Congress now that they believe should get its work done. I think the leadership of the Congress is determined to do that beginning on January 1st. But you've got to set the stage by not doing something incredibly stupid in the end of this year. And so, in my view, it's very important to clear the decks and begin the budget process afresh in January. And if we do that, it's possible that we can get this process back in order and actually not find ourselves in crisis situations the way we are so often now.
About a minute or so that we have left here with regard to the other big issue, immigration, that is always on the table. Those who say defund the government, those who say file lawsuits, those who say 17 states going after the president now. Is that really necessary, or is it at the point where it's going to go ahead, it will happen, so do we just now have to let it happen and then deal with it on the other side?
Well, I think there are two things. I think the president does need to be called on the extra powers that he assumed in all of this. And I think that one of the first things that they need to do next year is to make certain that they take the president on that issue. Beyond that, I think it's important for Congress to come up with the immigration deal that I think has been there for some time. There's a deal that can be had that closes our borders, that increases the number of legal immigrants that we allow into the country, and finds a path to legalization, not citizenship, but a path to legalization for many of the people who have been here and performed as good citizens while they've been here.
Congressman Walker, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. We wish you and your family a very happy holiday season, and we'll save tickets for you and me on the first trip to Mars.
Okay, thank you. I'd love to do that.
There you go. Take care, Congressman, and MidPoint will continue.